The first morning in the house was a test of nerves. Li Wei woke early, the unfamiliar hum of cameras already pressing against his skin. He lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sounds of movement in the hallway. The air smelled faintly of coffee and detergent, a strange blend of domesticity and performance. He sat up, rubbed his face, and reminded himself that this was survival. This was the price of relevance. Zhang Yichen was already awake. Li Wei found him in the kitchen, hair tousled, voice still rough with sleep, humming softly as he poured coffee. Yichen looked up, smiled easily. "Morning." Li Wei nodded, grateful for the familiar presence. "Morning." They stood in silence for a while, sipping coffee, pretending not to notice the camera perched in the corner. Then Yichen nudged him lightly. "You're tense." Li Wei gave a humorless laugh. "Of course I'm tense. We're pretending to be in love in front of half the country." Yichen smirked. "Relax. You've been pretending your whole life. Acting is what you do best." Li Wei shot him a look, but couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips. The producers gathered them all in the living room for the day's first activity, introductions. Each couple was asked to share their story, their quirks, their dynamic. The idol pair spoke with practiced charm, their chemistry sparkling. The comedian and his husband filled the room with laughter, their banter effortless. The model and athlete radiated glamour, their every gesture polished. When it was their turn, Li Wei felt his throat tighten. He glanced at Yichen, who gave him a reassuring nod before speaking. "We've known each other since we were kids," Yichen said smoothly. "We grew up together in the industry. We've always been close. And now we're here." The room buzzed with curiosity. Some of the other couples nodded politely. Others exchanged skeptical glances. Li Wei forced a smile, trying to look natural, but inside he felt exposed. He wondered if anyone could see through them, if anyone could tell that this was all a performance. But then Yichen reached over and squeezed his hand, casual, easy, and the tension eased. For a moment it felt real. The next day brought another challenge, a team game in the backyard. The couples were asked to build a tower out of wooden blocks, racing against each other. Li Wei's hands shook as he tried to balance the pieces, but Yichen steadied him, his voice calm and encouraging. "Slow down. Breathe. We've got this." Li Wei glanced at him, caught by the steadiness in his eyes, and felt the panic ease. Together, they built the tower, laughing when it wobbled, cheering when it stood tall. The cameras caught it all, and the audience saw not just teamwork, but something deeper: trust, intimacy, connection. That night, Li Wei lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again. He thought of Yichen's words, the way he had said, "We've got this," with such certainty. He thought of the way Yichen's hand had lingered on his arm, the way his smile had lit up the moment. Li Wei felt the truth pressing in on him, undeniable now. He was falling. Slowly, quietly, inevitably. He was falling for his best friend. And though he didn't know it yet, Yichen was falling too. The second morning in the house began with sunlight streaming through the wide glass windows, catching dust motes in the air like glitter. Li Wei stirred awake to the sound of laughter drifting from the kitchen. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and listened. It was Zhang Yichen's voice, warm and melodic, mixing with the comedian's booming laugh. Li Wei felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name: envy, admiration, longing, before pulling himself out of bed. When he entered the kitchen, Yichen was already at the stove, flipping pancakes with casual ease. The comedian and his husband sat at the counter, watching with amusement. "You're spoiling us," the comedian said. Yichen grinned. Better than starting the day with burnt toast. Li Wei hovered awkwardly, unsure where to fit into the scene. Yichen noticed, waved him over. "Come on, help me. You can handle the fruit." Li Wei rolled his eyes but obeyed, slicing strawberries while Yichen teased him about his clumsy knife skills. The cameras caught it all: the laughter, the banter, the way Yichen leaned close to whisper something that made Li Wei blush. Later, when the couples gathered for breakfast, the producers asked them to share their morning routines. The idol pair described skincare regimens and meditation. The model and athlete spoke about workouts and protein shakes. The comedian and his husband joked about arguing over who made the coffee. When it was Li Wei and Yichen's turn, Yichen spoke smoothly. We keep it simple. Coffee, breakfast, teasing each other until one of us gives up. He glanced at Li Wei, who tried to look annoyed but couldn't hide his smile. The room erupted in laughter. The day's challenge was announced, a trust exercise. Each couple had to blindfold one partner while the other guided them through an obstacle course in the backyard. Li Wei's stomach twisted at the thought. He hated losing control, hated the idea of stumbling in front of cameras. But Yichen volunteered immediately. I'll guide you, he said, his voice steady. Li Wei hesitated, then nodded. The blindfold was soft against his eyes, plunging him into darkness. He felt Yichen's hand on his arm, firm and reassuring. Step forward, Yichen said. Li Wei obeyed, heart pounding. Left. Careful. There's a block. Li Wei stumbled, but Yichen steadied him. I've got you. The words echoed in Li Wei's chest, louder than the laughter of the audience, louder than the instructions of the producers. He moved slowly, trusting Yichen's voice, trusting his touch. When they reached the end, the blindfold came off, and Li Wei blinked in the sunlight. Yichen was smiling, his hand still on Li Wei's arm. See? I told you we'd make it. The audience loved it. Social media exploded with clips of Li Wei stumbling, Yichen catching him, their laughter ringing out. They're so natural, fans wrote. You can see the trust between them. Li Wei read the comments late that night, lying in bed, and felt his chest tighten. It wasn't just trust. It was something deeper, something he couldn't ignore anymore. Over the next few days, the challenges grew more elaborate. Cooking, games, interviews, late-night conversations. Li Wei found himself relaxing, laughing more, feeling lighter. Yichen was always there, steady, supportive, teasing him when he faltered, encouraging him when he doubted. The cameras caught it all, and the audience ate it up. For the first time in months, Li Wei felt relevant again. For the first time in years, he felt alive. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. Li Wei caught himself watching Yichen too often, listening too closely, feeling too much. He told himself it was part of the act, that it was necessary for the show. But late at night, when the cameras dimmed and the house grew quiet, he couldn't deny the truth. He was falling. Slowly, quietly, inevitably. He was falling for his best friend. One evening, after a particularly exhausting challenge, Li Wei and Yichen sat together on the balcony. The city lights glittered in the distance, the air cool against their skin. Yichen leaned back, sighing. Do you ever wonder what people see when they watch us? Li Wei frowned. What do you mean? Do they see two friends pretending? Or do they see something real? Li Wei's breath caught. He looked at Yichen, the soft glow of the balcony lights illuminating his face, and felt the words rise in his throat. He wanted to say it, wanted to admit what he was feeling, but fear held him back. Instead, he laughed softly. You're too good at this. You make it look real. Yichen turned to him, eyes steady. Maybe it is real. The silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Li Wei looked away, his heart pounding. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond. He had spent his whole life performing, but this was different. This wasn't a role. This was him, raw and vulnerable, standing on the edge of something he didn't understand. The third week in the house began with tension simmering beneath the surface. By now, the couples had settled into routines, but familiarity had sharpened the edges of their interactions. The idol pair, once dazzling, now bickered over trivial things. The model and athlete seemed too perfect, their polished gestures beginning to feel rehearsed. The comedian and his husband remained the heart of the house, but even their jokes carried hints of fatigue. Li Wei felt the shift keenly. He had always been sensitive to atmospheres, to the subtle changes in tone and expression. He noticed the way the idol girl rolled her eyes when her partner spoke, the way the athlete's smile faltered when the model corrected him. He noticed the way the cameras lingered on these cracks, hungry for drama. And he noticed, too, the way they lingered on him and Zhang Yichen. The producers had begun to frame them as the surprise couple, the pair no one expected, the duo whose chemistry seemed too natural to be fake. Clips of their laughter, their teamwork, their quiet moments together were edited into montages that trended online. Fans dissected every glance, every touch, every word. "They're real," some insisted. "You can't fake that." Others were skeptical, pointing out the convenience of their pairing, the timing of Li Wei's career slump. But the debate only fueled the buzz, and the buzz kept the cameras on them. Li Wei read the comments late at night, scrolling until his eyes burned. He told himself it was just noise, just speculation, but he couldn't stop. He wanted to know how people saw them, wanted to know if they believed. And more than that, he wanted to know if Yichen believed. One evening, the producers announced a new challenge, a dance competition. Each couple had to choreograph a short routine and perform it in front of the others. Li Wei's stomach twisted at the thought. He had rhythm, yes, but he wasn't a dancer. Yichen, however, was in his element. Music was his world, and he approached the task with enthusiasm. "We'll keep it simple," Yichen said, grinning. "Something fun. Something that feels like us." They spent the afternoon in the practice room, mirrors lining the walls, music pulsing through the speakers. Yichen moved with ease, his body fluid, his steps confident. Li Wei stumbled, laughed, tried again. Yichen teased him, corrected him, encouraged him. "Relax. Don't think so much. Just feel it." Li Wei tried, focusing on Yichen's movements, letting himself be guided. Slowly, awkwardly, he began to find the rhythm. At one point, Yichen stepped close, his hand on Li Wei's waist, guiding him through a turn. Li Wei's breath caught, his heart racing. He told himself it was just part of the dance, just choreography, but the warmth of Yichen's touch lingered long after. They locked eyes in the mirror, and for a moment, the room seemed to fall away. The performance that evening was a success. Their routine was simple but joyful, filled with laughter and playful energy. The other couples clapped, the comedian whistled. The idol pair looked grudgingly impressed. The cameras caught it all, and the audience loved it. Clips of Li Wei and Yichen dancing went viral, fans swooning over their chemistry. "They look so happy," one comment read. "Like they're really in love." Afterward, Li Wei and Yichen sat together in the practice room, catching their breath. Li Wei wiped sweat from his forehead, laughing. "I'm hopeless." Yichen shook his head. "You're better than you think. You just need to stop doubting yourself." Li Wei looked at him, the words sinking deeper than they should. He wanted to believe them. He wanted to believe Yichen saw something in him worth holding on to. The days that followed were filled with more challenges, more laughter, more quiet moments. Li Wei found himself drawn to Yichen in ways he couldn't explain. He noticed the way Yichen's eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way his voice softened when he spoke to him, the way his presence made everything feel lighter. He told himself it was just the act, just the show, but the truth pressed in on him, undeniable. The other couples began to notice too. One evening, as they all sat in the living room, the comedian's husband leaned over and whispered to Li Wei. "You too, you're not really pretending, are you?" Li Wei froze, caught off guard. He forced a laugh. "Of course we are. It's just the show." But the man's eyes were knowing, his smile gentle. Sometimes pretending becomes real. Li Wei lay awake that night, the words echoing in his mind. Sometimes pretending becomes real. He thought of Yichen, of their laughter, of their touch, of the way his heart raced whenever they were close. He thought of the possibility, terrifying and exhilarating. He thought of what it would mean, what it would cost. And he wondered if Yichen felt it too.